This time we're going to be taking a look at the fight between Mikey Garcia and Sergey Lipinets, and this isn't going to be a whole breakdown of the entire fight. Rather, I'm going to just be taking a look and breaking down some of the basic boxing fundamentals displayed by Mikey Garcia, which allowed him to capture his fourth title in his fourth weight division. So I hope you learned something, and please enjoy the video. First thing we're going to talk about is moving over to the left. Mikey Garcia was moving to his left and circling Sergey Lipinets for the majority of the fight. Due to this being a match between two orthodox fighters, you often see this happen because it creates an angle of attack on your opponent's center line. In order to counter this, the other boxer must protect his center line by also stepping to his left. This is why you often see boxers circle each other. They are looking to expose the center line of their opponent. So here we see Mikey Garcia circle over to his left, and by doing this is able to change the angle of attack as well as avoid Lipinets' attack, and by doing so he's able to move away from Lipinets and avoid the corner because you see he's moving laterally. And once again we're going to see Mikey Garcia move over to his left and shoot the jab at the same time. Because his moving, it makes it that much harder for Lipinets to catch him, and there you see him draw out the right hand from Lipinets and counter him. This is all because he was moving over to his left with lateral movement. Now the next thing we're going to take a look at is Mikey Garcia's jab. The jab is the most basic punch in boxing, and it's also the most important punch for a boxer. In the orthodox versus orthodox matchup, you often see fighters jab as they circle to the left in order to attack the center line of their opponent. So what usually happens is you expose your opponent's center line by moving to the left, and then you capitalize on the opportunity by jabbing them. So let's see how Mikey performs this. So here we see Mikey Garcia land the jab, and he does this simply by taking a step forward and flicking his hip in order to extend his hand right into Sergey Lipinets' face. Now you look at the technique here. You notice that Mikey Garcia did not flare out his elbows, and he also didn't drop his hand before shooting it, therefore telegraphing the jab. He simply just went from point A to point B without any extra movements to shoot his jab. If you take a look at his shoulder, you see that his shoulder is also protecting his chin, just in case Sergey Lipinets counters him. He has his chin protected. This is excellent technique. And normally when you see fighters throw the step jab, usually they're unable to follow up with it with a right hand because usually their trailing foot is much too far away for them to get any meaningful balance behind their shot. Therefore, with their stance too wide, normally you see them back off or either throw another jab. So not with Mikey Garcia. Let's take a look at what he does after he throws the step jab. Here you see Mikey Garcia throw the step jab, but as he does it, he takes a very quick step forward with his trailing foot in order to close his stance off so that he could throw a meaningful right hand behind it. So let's take a look at it again. He turns a step jab into a long range 1-2. I know this looks like it's very easy, but you actually don't see this done a lot in boxing. Mikey Garcia is very dangerous with his 1-2 combination because he's able to have this in his arsenal. You just never know when that 1-2 is coming. Since he could throw it from so far away, a lot of fighters have trouble dealing with this because they're not used to seeing this. It's excellent. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to break down that sequence that just happened. And before I do, I just want to say that the level of skill displayed in this one sequence is so high it probably went over the heads of most people watching the fight. Now I'm going to attempt to break down every aspect of this one sequence, but if there's one thing you're going to take away from this video, please just take away this technique used by Mikey Garcia. So here we see Mikey Garcia feint the 1-2, and that gets Sergey Lipinets into a high guard. Now since Mikey Garcia has been throwing 1-2s all day on Sergey Lipinets, he's trying to get Sergey Lipinets to expect the 1-2. So this time he's just going to feint the 1-2, and that successfully gets Sergey Lipinets into a high guard. And how is he going to capitalize on this situation? So take a close look at what Mikey Garcia does. Instead of throwing the 1-2, he's going to step over to his left and throw a left hook around the exposed high guard of Sergey Lipinets. And what's really important to know in boxing, usually when your opponent assumes a high guard, they're open on either side of their guard, especially if they don't move their feet. So since he's in his high guard, Mikey Garcia steps over to his left, like he always has, to open up the angle for his left hook to land around the guard. But that's not all Mikey Garcia does. Mikey Garcia is going to capitalize on the rest of this by using that left hook and pivoting around Sergey Lipinets. So you see now here, Sergey Lipinets is completely square to Mikey Garcia. As a matter of fact, they're both completely square to each other. But since Lipinets was just hit, he's going to want to adjust his stance in order to protect his center line, because you see his center line is completely exposed to pretty much anything Mikey Garcia can throw. So how is Mikey Garcia going to capitalize on this? Take a close look at Mikey Garcia's right foot. Watch his footwork here. He's going to take his right foot and he's going to pivot it all the way around to his left foot. So now look at this. Sergey Lipinets' center line is completely exposed to Mikey Garcia. Because Mikey Garcia was able to pivot around his left foot, which already had the angle on Sergey Lipinets, he pivoted around on that, swung his right foot over, and now Sergey Lipinets is completely square because he wasn't able to fix his position in time, and now the opening is right down the middle. So you see he lands a jab right down the middle and then the right hand. Excellent. Let's watch that again. So he's going to feint the 1-2 and get Lipinets into the high guard. Then he's going to take a step over to the left with his left foot in order to open up the angle for his left hook to land around the gloves. Once he does that, he now capitalizes on that by swinging over his right foot, and now Lipinets is completely square. And from there, he's able to shoot his attack right down the middle. And this all landed because he was able to square up Lipinets by pivoting over. Let's just take a look over at the pivot. See now his square, and then he swings his right foot over in order to square up Lipinets. As you see, since Lipinets was already square, Mikey Garcia, all he has to do is swing over his right foot. Now, in order to further simplify this, the center line is your center of gravity, and it is always perpendicular to the ground no matter how much you move. And in boxing, this fundamental theory is used to expose openings on your opponent. Since the most openings will be present when your center of gravity is exposed, you often see boxers use footwork to position themselves in positions that give them these openings. Just like what Mikey Garcia did in the previous sequence, in an orthodox versus orthodox matchup, you can expose your opponent's center line by stepping to the left, and if they don't move, you pivot on your left foot in order to bring your right foot over until you and your opponent's feet form a T. This is exactly what he did. You could practice this yourself. In boxing, you should always seek a positional advantage on your opponent, and when your opponent makes an adjustment in their position, you should be punching them.
And that's real up and real deal, Holyfield. And now you hookers and hoes know how I feel. Well, if it's good enough to give up a proper chunk, I take a small piece of some of that funky stuff. It's like this and like that and like this, and it's like that and like this and like that, and it's like this and like that and like this. And